It's not exactly vintage Argentina compared to what we've seen in the past, but they're getting it done. They're winning these games, aren't they?
Well, how many lives do they have, right? Because they barely got through Egypt in the last round. They struggled through Cabo Verde, and now they've struggled again big time against a 10-man Switzerland team. So they're gonna have to change some things. I mean, they're through to the semifinals against England, but if they want to win this World Cup, I think big changes need to be made. I think they need to use some fresher legs in there as well. But for all that we talked about Julian Alvarez not showing up in this World Cup, he made the big difference this time. Lautaro Martinez finishes it off with the third. And I thought Thiago Almada came in and provided a little bit of a spark as well in the extra time. But, man, it's just, I don't think it's good enough to win the whole thing.
Yeah, let me start with the positives. Congratulations to Argentina. This was obviously a game they had to fight incredibly hard for. Playing against 10 players is not easy. It should be easy for that group of Argentinian players out there, but they somewhat made it look difficult. They're now the highest goal scorers of the competition so far. They're one ahead of France, which is a credit to them. They've had a rather easy run into this stage, though. The competition they've come up against has not been spectacular, and I don't think Switzerland were spectacular in this game either, albeit they had their chance, Switzerland, and unfortunately a controversial decision once again goes in favour of Argentina and against the opposition. But you have to take your hat off to Argentina. They find a way. Messi was quiet in this game, got his assist in the first half. They then sat back for the rest of the game and allowed Switzerland to play football, and then Julian Alvarez, who hadn't turned up for the whole competition, eventually steps up with a world-class goal. And as you pointed out, Adam, that's what world-class teams do. They find a way to win football games, albeit this might be one of the ugliest performances I've ever seen from an Argentina side.
You said they need to get better. Obviously, they'll need to be better against England, and then potentially if they get to the final against France or Spain. What is it they need to improve? Do they just need to be a bit more cutting edge? We only really saw that towards the end with the goal for Alvarez and then Lautaro Martinez late on, but they're not really creating those clear-cut opportunities, are they?
No, they're not. And I do think that, I think I saw from the statistics, right, the first half, second half, first half extra time and second half extra time, 7 total shots on target, 4 of them coming in the second half of extra time. So it's just not enough, right? And you talk about they've scored a lot of goals. Yeah, well, they've also played more minutes than pretty much every other team with these 120-minute games that they've been playing. So I think, how do they get better? I'm not there, so I can't make the decisions as to what's going on in training and what players are showing well. But there's a handful of players that I think have abundance of qualities that we've seen in European matches in this season, and they're not getting many minutes, right? And so I'd love to see some players, and I know we talked about Nico Paz, who's had excellent seasons in Serie A with Como. Thiago Almada, I think, as much as he hasn't had a great World Cup, he has a spark that changes the game a little bit. It opens up the game for other players around him. I'd like to see him get more minutes. Yeah. I can't see Rodrigo de Paul, McAllister, Paredes, and what's the other one? Enzo together. Enzo. All 4 of them. They're all sort of similar. None of them have a cutting edge going forward, and I don't think they open up the game for anybody else. Yep. And obviously Messi is kind of having to do everything on his own, and he's not able to. He's 39 years old. Yep. Doesn't matter how good he is, he can't do it all by himself.
But Ian, is that a case of Scaloni's just too loyal to some of the old guard that obviously done it for him at the last World Cup? He's not wanting to get that blend between youth and experience. He's focusing too much on experience.
Well, why wouldn't you, right? When the team's done that before for you, they've won you a World Cup. I mean, listen, I've been incredibly positive up to this point, but now I'm going to turn to the negatives. This is an aging Argentina squad, and they showed it in this game again against Switzerland. Okay, they found a way. It was a great strike from Julian Alvarez. But let's be completely honest. Argentina haven't come up against the best opposition to get this stage. And I understand you make your own path and you can only beat the team that's right in front of you. But to Benny's point of view, if you look at who they've played against, Algeria in the group stage, they then faced up against Austria, then against Jordan. Then we get to Cape Verde, who made it very difficult, got to an extra time stage with them. And they looked aging at that point, but yet moments of brilliance from obviously the magic man finds them the way through to the next game. Then in that next game against Egypt, they're 2-0 down and somehow find something else in the closing stages of the game from somewhere, from God knows where, from the soccer gods. I mean, that's what's breathing down right now on this Argentina side. Then again, let's get into this game. Switzerland were playing them off the park. This is the world champions. and they were passing the ball around like they were playing like Barcelona or the Spanish national team, zipping that ball around. But Switzerland didn't have a final product in the final third until Ndoye got his goal. And then what happens? Once again, the soccer gods shine right down on the world champions. How on earth we got to a video review and got a second yellow card for a player like Breel Embolo to be sent off and spent 5 minutes on that decision is beyond me. There is so many favourable decisions that are falling in the way of Argentina. I don't think it's their fault. I don't blame Argentina. But a lot goes in their path, a lot of luck, a lot of fortune. And for an aging team, God, they need that luck. Because this group, I don't even know how they've got to this stage. I don't believe this Argentina can win the World Cup. And yet here they are in a semi-final.
Well, let's talk a bit more about this VAR controversy. It feels like it wouldn't be a World Cup game without a VAR controversy. It seems to happen every single game. We can speak to our rules expert, Christina Unkel. Christina, thanks so much for coming on. Firstly, what was your interpretation of what happened, and was the right decision made?
The right decision was made in the sense that they are being consistent in how they treated today's Embolo decision with where you referenced earlier on Tim Ream, Miguel Almiron. That is the exact same situation. And where this is surprising is this is only the second time we've ever seen this expanded interpretation of what they are calling mistaken identity under the VAR protocol. So there was a slight tweak to the language under VAR protocols under mistaken identity to say that you can issue a yellow card to either team if a mistake is done. Now, many of us in the referee world were not anticipating this to be effectively giving yellow cards or deciding yellow cards on simulation. Now, when it happened in the Tim Ream situation, there was an overwhelming amount of people who really enjoyed it, said they liked it, they want to see this canceled out of the game. And now we see it here today, and you see it is still consistent. It's still under the mistaken identity. It's being applied consistently by the officials, but there's a different reaction to it. And so I think it's drawing a lot of criticism today versus when it did in the Tim Ream situation, because it was the second yellow card, red card situation, obviously the energy and the narrative around Argentina itself. But where I personally think we get into a situation when we're using VAR and using the title mistaken identity, which in my opinion, the graphic should say simulation and it should be a new protocol, is that we're not just changing who the card is going to, we're changing the underlying the underlying issue that is being, penalized, right? It's changing from we think that there's a foul to we actually think it's a completely different kind of a decision, a different kind of a foul. And that, to me, I find we're now entering in officially into the zone of re-refereeing the game.
Yeah. I have a hard time processing all that just because first I've played the game, and mistaken identity to me was always when the yellow card is given to somebody that shouldn't have received it and they got the wrong name, right? So to me, this is again, I'm not behind closed doors where VAR and the refereeing is being decided how they're going to call it, but it seems like they changed the rule on the fly, right? Because that's not what happened with Almiron, and what happened today, I don't think is what the rule was intended for. At least it doesn't seem like it for diving, like you said, for simulation. And we see simulation happening all over, in many different circumstances. And so now we're only attributing the switch of the yellow card from one player to the other when somebody actually gets that yellow card for the foul in the first place. So it's confusing, and I think that's the biggest thing that worries me with that, because then you're allowing it to be subjective, and as of right now, Argentina is benefiting from it, right? In this case, I think that there's some subjectivity. And I know we're going, 4 days ago to the Egypt goal as well, where it's a foul that happened so long before the goal that Egypt got. So it starts to feel like this subjective thing that is benefiting one team and maybe not all the others. So how I guess, I don't know if there's so much of a question, but how do we fix that, and how do we allow fans to understand that it's more objective rather than subjective?
I think you hit it in the head in the sense that after this tournament, there's a couple of situations, not just this incident that we saw tonight, but that there's some other situations when we talk about where does the player have the capability and the opportunity to step in and challenge for the ball when somebody's winding up, right? We have the situation with Article 27 and Balogun, right? Like, should that have been overturned by a disciplinary committee without them providing founding reasons? There have been multiple situations where when we say quote unquote VAR controversy or referee controversy, what we're really talking about is an application that's starting to break the spirit of the game. And people say, oh, that's just a word we use and we throw it out whenever we don't like something. Well, yeah, kind of, because it's a spirit, right? It's malleable, it moves, you hit it on the head. Is this how we want to see the future of our game being officiated? Not because the officials are making these decisions, but because the stakeholders at the decision table under IFAB are not just making these new laws, but the application of these laws. And that's where I think where we're struggling in this tournament particularly is, where's the threshold of VAR, right? What's clear and obvious error? How do we want to see it applied? That needs to be discussed in really transparent conversations.
I'm just fed up with the video review, full stop, Christina. I think it's doing more harm to our game than it is doing good. I understand that we want to make sure that the right decision or influential decisions are being made. Goals, offsides, I can understand that one. Red cards, I can understand that one. But when we're actually allowing video review to interrupt the game for 5 minutes to produce a yellow card, and it is unfortunate, it's a second yellow card, but to just flip-flop a yellow card, I feel like video review was not here for this purpose. I feel like it's hurting the game far more than it is helping the game. Do you agree with that?
I agree with it. I was one of the first referees in our group in Major League Soccer to be trained on the VAR protocol. And ironically enough, Howard Webb was our video, referee instructor of VAR. And we sat with that protocol and we painstakingly and theoretically applied, is this where we want the game to go? And we were very, very strict, must be clear. And we kept leaning on this word obvious, right? A clear, obvious error. And we did that because, yes, there's a slippery slope that can happen when you start diving into these, right? Another good example is, VAR can correct clear and obvious errors when a corner kick is given, but not a goal kick is given. And that kind of fried everyone's brain in the beginning. And I'm like, I agree, right? But whether we agree or not, it really comes down to who is sitting on these decision committees under IFAB, which are not just referees. Yes, you have FIFA referee people there from that committee, but you also have stakeholders. And that is where VAR originated from, was stakeholders. You said these are $1 million, maybe $1 billion games that we don't want to put in the hands of referee and human error. We are trying to make this game as objective as we possibly can. And now they're finding that the porridge is either too hot or it's too cold. We haven't figured out the right temperature.
Yeah, well said. Well said.
Yeah,
exactly.
Interesting context. Thanks very much, Christina. We'll speak to you soon.